6-year-old beggar girl tells what this millionaire's wife did. When the court heard, everyone was shocked. Comment what you think will happen. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. Your help is very important. The rain lashed down on the narrow streets of Harmony Springs that July dawn. Olivia Constant, a girl just 6 years old, clutched the thin, worn jacket her Aunt Bernice had gotten from one of the houses where she cleaned. From her small brown eyes, she watched the thick drops streaming down the window of the makeshift room she shared with her aunt in the back of a boarding house. Her thoughts always returned to her parents, Eliza and Ryan, who had vanished 8 months ago without a trace. The longing squeezed her heart every time she saw other children walking home from school hand in hand with their parents. But that night, something different caught her attention. Across the street, near the river that cut through town, a strange commotion broke the monotony of the early morning. An elegant woman, shielded by a black umbrella, was walking quickly towards the bank. Even with her vision partly obscured by the rain, Olivia immediately recognized Magnolia Hayes, the wife of the richest man in town. Bernice, her 45-year-old aunt, slept deeply after another exhausting day of work. She had been unfairly fired from the Hayes mansion a few weeks ago, accused of a theft she never committed. Olivia still remembered her aunt's tears as she swore her innocence, but Magnolia had been relentless. Little Olivia, driven by a curiosity greater than her fear of the storm, crept silently towards the window. Her attentive eyes caught every movement of Magnolia, who was now leaning over the river's protective railing. The woman constantly looked from side to side, as if afraid of being seen. In her hands, Magnolia held a large, dark briefcase. With quick, precise movements, she began tearing papers and throwing them into the turbulent water. The heavy rain seemed to conspire in her favor, quickly carrying each piece away. But she wasn't alone. A tall man wearing a dark trench coat joined her, helping with the disposal of the documents. Olivia held her breath when she recognized the second person. It was Lance Vance, the lawyer who frequently visited the Hayes mansion. She knew him from the times she accompanied her aunt on cleaning jobs before the unfair dismissal. She had always felt there was something intimidating in his gaze. From her makeshift hiding place, the girl watched the scene for long minutes, sensing she was witnessing something important, even without fully understanding what. The voices of the two barely reached her ears, muffled by the rain. But their nervous expressions and gestures revealed that this was no simple cleaning out of old papers. In the Hayes mansion, a few miles away, Theodore, a 62-year-old man who had built his empire in the dairy business, slept, unaware that his wife, 30 years his junior, was plotting his ruin. Meanwhile, Eleanor, the 70-year-old housekeeper, who had served the family for decades, remained awake in her room, uneasy about the strange goings-on she had noticed lately. The next day, life would seemingly continue its normal course in Harmony Springs. Olivia would return to selling flowers at the traffic light in front of Theodore's office, without imagining that this man, who always observed her with kind eyes, from his office window, would be a fundamental piece in a story that would change everyone's lives forever. Bernice woke up early, as always, for another day of work. She found Olivia sitting on the edge of the bed, with dark circles under her eyes for such a small child. "Didn't you sleep well, my angel?" she asked worriedly, running her hand through her niece's dark, wavy hair. "I had nightmares, Auntie," Olivia lied, deciding to keep what she had witnessed to herself. Something in her childish heart told her that this secret could be dangerous. At the Hayes mansion, Magnolia had her breakfast with studied tranquility, while Theodore prepared for another day of work. His demeanor was serene, as if the previous night were just a distant nightmare. But Eleanor, as she served coffee, noticed something different in her employer's eyes. The housekeeper, who had never trusted Magnolia, began to pay even closer attention to the woman's every move that very day. Years of experience had taught her to recognize when something wasn't right, and her instinct rarely failed. Meanwhile, in his law office, Lance Vance reviewed documents with slightly trembling hands. The plan he had concocted with Magnolia was risky, but the promised return was substantial. What neither of them knew was that a small witness with sharp eyes and a pure heart had witnessed a crucial moment of their conspiracy. In the afternoon, when Olivia went to sell her flowers at the traffic light, her eyes met Theodore's through the office window. The businessman, who was silently suffering from a secretly kept heart condition, felt an inexplicable tenderness for that girl. There was something in her gaze that reminded him of the purity he had not found in his social circle for a long time. That same day, Dr. Clara White, the cardiologist treating Theodore, attended an emergency at the local health clinic. Seeing Bernice with Olivia in the waiting room, something about their features seemed familiar. The doctor didn't know, but that casual encounter would be the first of many threads that would begin to intertwine, forming a web of connections that no one could foresee. Night fell again over Harmony Springs, bringing with it the weight of the secrets that now inhabited the heart of a 6-year-old girl. Olivia lay down in her simple bed, hugging the only toy she still kept from the times she lived with her parents, a small, worn teddy bear. Her thoughts wandered between the scene she had witnessed the night before and the longing she felt for her parents. What no one knew was that that rainy night would be just the beginning of a series of events that would shake the foundations of the small town. Fate had chosen an unlikely messenger to bring to light truths long buried, and nothing would be the same when all the secrets came out. The next morning, the Hayes dairy office was buzzing with the news that Theodore had felt unwell during an important meeting. His face suddenly turned pale, and he had to lean on the table to keep from falling. Dr. Clara White, his cardiologist, was urgently called, and after examining him, was visibly concerned about the results of recent tests. "Your levels are completely off, Theodore," she said, frowning as she analyzed the papers. "It's as if you haven't been taking your medication correctly." "But that's impossible," he protested, still feeling a tightness in his chest. "I take my medication religiously, Magnolia. Always makes a point of personally giving me each dose." Outside the office, Olivia watched the unusual commotion through the window pane, her small hands holding a bouquet of daisies she had picked from the field near the boarding house. In the past few days, ever since she had witnessed that scene, by the river, the girl had started paying even closer attention to everything happening around her. At the Hayes mansion, Eleanor was tidying the couple's room when she found something strange in the back of a drawer in Magnolia's nightstand, a box with several pills identical to the ones Theodore took. The suspicious housekeeper discreetly photographed the discovery with the old cell phone her granddaughter had taught her to use. Meanwhile, Bernice got a new cleaning job at the house of Joyce Miller, the newly arrived social worker in town. While cleaning, she couldn't help but notice the number of children's drawings scattered around the office. "They're from my little patients," Joyce explained, noticing the cleaner's interest. "Children often express through drawings what they can't say with words." At lunchtime, Bernice found Olivia sitting on the sidewalk in front of Theodore's office, with only half her flowers sold. The girl seemed distant, hugging her knees, watching the street traffic with thoughtful eyes. "What is it, my love? Are you worried about something?" Bernice asked, sitting down next to her niece with a simple packed lunch they would share. Olivia hesitated for a moment, playing with a loose daisy. "Auntie, do you think bad people always get what they want?" The question caught Bernice by surprise. Before she could answer, a luxury car pulled up beside them. The window rolled down, revealing Magnolia's face, who was watching them with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What a touching scene," she said with false sweetness. "Bernice, dear, we need to talk. How about coffee tomorrow? I have a proposal that might interest you and your lovely niece." The tone Magnolia used sent a shiver down Bernice's spine. After the car drove away, she noticed Olivia was trembling slightly. "What happened, my little one? Why are you so scared?" But before Olivia could answer, they were surprised by Theodore, who was leaving the building, supported by his secretary. He stopped when he saw the flower girl, and his tired eyes lit up for a moment. "You're here every day, aren't you?" he asked gently, buying all the remaining flowers in the bouquet. "What's your name, little one?" "Olivia Constance, sir," she replied shyly, while Bernice watched the scene with a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. "Constant," Theodore frowned. "Like Ryan Constant, the engineer?" Bernice's heart pounded. "Yes, sir. Ryan and Eliza are her parents. I'm Eliza's sister." Theodore was silent for a few moments, his mind working quickly. "Their disappearance never made sense to me. Ryan was about to take on an important project at the company." That same afternoon, at Dr. Clara White's office, a disturbing discovery was beginning to take shape. While reviewing old patient records, she found a picture of her high school class. Among the smiling faces, she recognized Eliza, her old friend from adolescence, next to a young Magnolia. The doctor couldn't believe she hadn't made the connection before. At City Hall, Lance Vance received an unexpected visit from a former employee of the Public Works Department who carried a briefcase with documents that Ryan had left before disappearing. "I thought you should see this, sir," the man said, visibly nervous. "Something is very wrong with those development projects." That night at the boarding house, Bernice found a thick envelope under her door. Inside was enough money for 3 months' rent and an anonymous note. "Accept Magnolia's invitation tomorrow. Be smart." Eleanor, who hadn't been sleeping well since she found the pills, decided to make a night round through the mansion. In Theodore's office, she caught Magnolia going through important documents, photographing some with her phone and replacing others with different versions. The housekeeper tried to back away silently, but a floorboard creaked under her feet. Magnolia turned sharply, her eyes gleaming like a predator's in the darkness. "How long have you been there, Eleanor?" "I just got here, Ma'am," the housekeeper lied, feeling her heart race. "I came to check if all the windows were closed." Magnolia approached slowly, her expensive perfume filling the air. "You know, I've always admired your dedication to the family. It would be a shame if something happened to your granddaughter who works at the bank, wouldn't it?" Eleanor's blood ran cold. That night, 2 women couldn't sleep. One planning how to protect her discoveries, the other calculating her next move in an increasingly dangerous game. The next morning, Bernice hesitated for a long time before leaving Olivia with Joyce to go meet Magnolia. The social worker had offered to look after the girl for a few hours, saying she'd like to get to know her better through some activities. What no one expected was that during that seemingly innocent drawing session, Olivia would begin to reveal, through colorful strokes and childish symbols, much more than any adult could imagine. On one of the sheets, a dark figure bending over a blue river surrounded by raindrops caught Joyce's attention. "Tell me about this drawing, Olivia?" she asked softly, unaware that she was about to unleash a series of revelations that would change the fate of everyone in small Harmony Springs. The coffee between Magnolia and Bernice took place in a discreet pastry shop in the center of Harmony Springs. The place, almost empty at that hour in the morning, was perfect for conversations that shouldn't be overheard. Magnolia, impeccable in her navy blue silk dress, stirred her cup distractedly while observing the cleaner with a calculated smile. $100,000, she said softly, as if commenting on the weather. "It's enough to start over somewhere. Else far from here, you and little Olivia could have a much better life." Bernice felt her stomach churn. The amount was more money than she had ever seen in her life, enough to fulfill all the dreams she had for her niece. But something in Magnolia's tone made her hands tremble slightly. "And what do you want in return, Ma'am?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Just for the 2 of you to leave town. Today. Without telling anyone, without leaving a trace. Magnolia leaned forward, lowering her voice even further. Think about it, Bernice. Your niece deserves more than selling flowers on the streets, don't you think? Meanwhile, in Joyce's office, Olivia continued her drawing session. The social worker carefully observed every stroke of the girl, every color chosen, every seemingly insignificant detail that could reveal hidden truths. "Who are these people in your drawing, Olivia?" Joyce asked, pointing to two figures near a blue rectangle that seemed to represent the river. The girl hesitated, her colored pencil trembling slightly. "It's a secret," she whispered, but continued drawing. On the sheet, an elegant female figure appeared repeatedly, always in black, always with a rectangular object in her hands. At the city hospital, Dr. Clara White meticulously examined Theodore's tests. Something didn't add up in the results, as if his body wasn't responding properly to the treatment. While analyzing the data, her mind constantly returned to the old high school photo, to Eliza's smiling face next to Magnolia. Determined to better understand this past connection, Clara began searching her personal files. In the dusty album, she found more photos from that time. In one of them, Magnolia appeared hugging Lance Vance during a graduation party. In the caption, a date and a revealing phrase, "Always together, no matter what." At the Hayes mansion, Eleanor continued her silent investigation. Taking advantage of Magnolia's absence, she crept into her private closet. In the back of a jewelry drawer, she found an old cell phone. With trembling hands, she managed to turn it on. The screen revealed dozens of messages exchanged with Lance, some dated years ago, long before his marriage to Theodore. "The old man is getting weaker," read one of the messages. "Soon everything will be ours, my love, as we've planned for so long." The housekeeper's heart pounded. Her suspicions about the relationship between Magnolia and Lance were finally confirmed. But before she could continue reading, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Quickly, she photographed some messages with her own phone and put everything back in place. In Theodore's office, the businessman received an unexpected visit. The former City Hall employee, the same one who had sought out Lance, decided to risk everything and tell the millionaire directly what he knew. "Mr. Hayes," he began, nervous. "The engineer Ryan discovered something terrible before he disappeared. Your wife and Mr. Vance have been buying land from poor families for ridiculously low prices, using fake documentation. They were planning a large development, but it wasn't legal. Nothing was legal." Theodore, already weakened by the supposed illness, felt the world spin. "What do you mean? What fake documentation?" "They were forging appraisals, sir, making it look like the land was condemned, that the families had to leave. Your engineer discovered everything in the City Hall projects. That's why he—" The sentence was interrupted by Magnolia's abrupt entry into the room. Her smile froze when she saw the unexpected visitor, who instantly turned pale. "Darling, I didn't know you had visitors," she said, her voice sweet, contrasting with the sharp look she gave the employee. "You shouldn't tire yourself so much. You know what Clara said about your heart." That same afternoon, Joyce made a surprise visit to the boarding house where Bernice and Olivia lived. The social worker had noticed disturbing patterns in the girl's drawings, symbols indicating deep trauma related to her parents' disappearance. Upon arriving, she found Bernice sitting on the bed, staring at an envelope. Silent tears ran down her face. "I can't accept," she murmured upon seeing Joyce. "I can't betray my sister's trust. She'll come back, I know she will." Meanwhile, in the hospital emergency room, Eleanor was admitted in a hurry. The housekeeper had suffered a stroke right after trying to make an important call. In her purse, a cell phone with crucial evidence remained locked. Olivia, who had stayed at school during the afternoon, was walking home hand in hand with her teacher when she saw a strange commotion near the river. Lance Vance was arguing heatedly with someone on the phone. "I don't care how you fix this, Magnolia," his voice echoed down the empty street. "We have to deal with this now. The old man is getting suspicious, and that damn housekeeper knows. Too much." The girl hid behind a tree, her heart pounding. The teacher, distracted by other students, didn't notice her momentary disappearance. At the city police station, a retired detective leafed through an old file. The case of the disappearance of Regina Meadows, a former business partner of Theodore, had never been solved. The last people to see Regina alive were Magnolia and Lance during a meeting at the Hayes mansion. The sun was beginning to set in Harmony Springs when Clara received a mysterious call. A familiar voice, one she hadn't heard in 8 months, came from the other end of the line. "Clara, it's Eliza. Please don't hang up. I need you to protect my daughter. We're coming home." But they can't know. "We found out something terrible, something that will change everything." The call dropped before Eliza could finish, leaving Clara with a pounding heart and a crucial decision to make. At the hospital, Theodore was suffering another crisis, while Magnolia smiled with satisfaction as she discreetly replaced the medications in his room. What no one knew was that a small camera, installed by Eleanor weeks before, was silently recording the millionaire's wife's every move. And somewhere, in town, a 6-year-old girl held in her heart the weight of a secret too big for her small shoulders. Harmony Springs Hospital was in turmoil that morning. Theodore had been admitted in a hurry during the night after a crisis more severe than the previous ones. In room 304, Dr. Clara White examined the results of the new tests with an increasingly worried expression. Something in the numbers didn't make sense, as if his body was reacting to a completely different medication than the one prescribed. "Dr. Lewis," she called the head of the pharmacy, "I need you to check something for me. I want a complete analysis of the medication Mr. Hayes is taking." In the hallway, Magnolia paced back and forth, her high heels echoing on the marble floor. Her perfectly manicured hands squeezed her designer handbag with unnecessary force, while she cast furtive glances at the door of the room where Eleanor was admitted, still unconscious after the stroke. On the other side of town, Bernice woke up startled by knocking on the boarding house door. Her heart almost stopped when she saw 2 police officers standing on the threshold. "Miss Bernice Constant, we found something you need to see." The officers escorted her to the police station, where retired Detective Gerald Miller awaited them with an old file on his desk. "Miss Bernice, do you recognize this woman?" he asked, showing a photo of an elegant, middle-aged executive. "Regina Meadows," Bernice replied, frowning. "She used to visit the house where I cleaned before she vanished." "Exactly," Gerald said, his tired eyes shining with new energy. "And do you know who else vanished mysteriously?" "The accountant, who handled her finances. Curiously, right after he questioned some suspicious transactions involving land in the area. At school, Olivia participated in another session with Joyce. The social worker had transformed a corner of her room into a small studio with papers, paints, and modeling clay. "Today we're going to do something different, Olivia," she said, softly. "How about you show me, with these modeling clays, what your house was like before?" The girl began to work silently, her small fingers shaping a simple house. Beside it, she made a garden with colorful flowers, where 2 larger and 1 smaller figure smiled. But then, her hands began to tremble as she created a 4th figure, all in black, standing near a blue rectangle that looked like a river. "Who is this person, dear?" Joyce asked gently, noticing the change in the child's behavior. "The bad lady," Olivia whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "She told Daddy and Mommy they had to leave, otherwise—" At that moment, they were interrupted by an urgent knock on the door. It was Clara White, breathless and visibly disturbed. "Joyce, we need to talk. It's about Olivia and about Magnolia Hayes." At the hospital, Dr. Lewis returned with the results of the medication analysis. His face was pale. Dr. White, this is very serious. The pills Mr. Hayes is taking, they're placebos. Meanwhile, at the Hayes mansion, one of the maids was cleaning the master bedroom when she found something strange behind the bathroom mirror. A small camera, carefully positioned. Not knowing what to do, she put the device in her uniform pocket, determined to show it to Eleanor as soon as the housekeeper recovered. At the law office, Lance received an unexpected visit. An elderly woman, leaning on a cane, hobbled into his office. "Mr. Vance, I came to make a confession. I was the one who helped forge those land deeds 20 years ago. Regina Meadows found out, and that's why she—" "Enough!" Lance cut in sharply, standing up. "You're confused, madam. I suggest you go home and rest." But the woman didn't move. Instead, she took a yellowed envelope from her pocket. "I have proof, doctor, and it's not just about the old deeds. I also know about the documents you and Mrs. Hayes threw in the river that night." Lance's face turned pale. "How did you—" "My granddaughter," the woman replied with a sad smile, "lives right across from the river, and she has a habit of filming the night landscape with her phone. You know how these young people are." At school, Olivia was playing on the playground. During recess, when she saw something that made her heart pound. A car very similar to the one her parents used was parked across the street. For a moment, she was sure she had seen her mother's face in the passenger seat. "Mommy!" she cried, running towards the gate, but a teacher stopped her in time. When she looked again, the car had disappeared. In the hospital room, Theodore woke up disoriented. Beside him was not Magnolia, but a nurse who was changing his IV. Where is my wife?" he asked in a weak voice. "Mrs. Hayes left a few hours ago," the nurse replied. "She said she needed to take care of something urgent at the company. In fact, Magnolia was at that moment in a secret meeting with investors at a hotel on the outskirts of town. Gentlemen," she was saying, displaying a power of attorney with Theodore's signature, "as you can see, I have full authority to negotiate the sale of the land. My husband is not in a condition to make important decisions at the moment." What she didn't know was that one of the waiters serving coffee at that meeting was Eleanor's nephew, and her every word was being recorded on a small device hidden in his uniform. At the police station, Detective Gerald received an important call. "Sir, we found Engineer Ryan's car. It was abandoned at a mechanic shop in Chicago. The mechanic said a couple left the vehicle there 8 months ago, promising to return in a few days." Bernice, who was still at the police station, felt her legs give way. "They didn't run away," she murmured, tears streaming down her face. "They were forced out." In Joyce's office, Olivia finally began to open up. Through drawings and small phrases, she revealed how she had seen Magnolia and Lance by the river that night, how she heard strange conversations when she went with her aunt to clean at the mansion, and especially how her parents' behavior had changed after a visit from Magnolia at their house. "She said she would hurt everyone," Olivia sobbed, clutching her teddy bear. "Daddy was very sad, and Mommy cried secretly every night." Clara White, who was observing the session, felt her heart ache. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fit together, forming a terrifying picture of greed and manipulation that stretched back decades. By the end of that afternoon, as the sun set over Harmony Springs, 3 simultaneous events shook the foundations of the small town. Eleanor awoke from her unconscious state, urgently asking for paper and a pen. Bernice's cell phone rang with a call from an unknown number in Arizona, and at the Hayes mansion, the maid who found the camera made an even more disturbing discovery in the basement. A box full of documents with the letterhead of Regina Meadows Company, all with annotations in the margins made in Magnolia's unmistakable handwriting. The rain began to fall again over Harmony Springs as intensely as on the night everything began, At the hospital, Eleanor wrote frantically in a notebook, her trembling hands barely keeping up with the urgency of her revelations. The nurse tried to convince her to rest, but the housekeeper vehemently refused. "I need to record everything," she insisted, "before it's too late." In the same hospital, a few rooms away, Theodore received a visit from Dr. Clara White with the results of the medication analysis. The doctor carefully closed the door before sitting by the bedside. "Mr. Hayes," she began, her controlled voice masking her indignation, "you are not sick, at least not as sick as we thought. Your medication has been replaced by placebos, and we found traces of substances that cause symptoms similar to heart failure." The businessman was silent for a long time, his aged face transforming with a mixture of pain and understanding. "Magnolia," he finally whispered. "But why?" "Because she needed you to be weak and dependent," a voice from the door answered. It was Bernice, entering the room with Olivia by the hand. "And now I know why." At the police station, Detective Gerald coordinated a discreet operation. The discoveries of the past few hours had triggered a series of connections that went back 2 decades. On his desk, old photos showed Magnolia much younger, beside different influential men in the region. All of them had lost considerable fortunes after becoming romantically involved with her. "It's a pattern," he explained to his team. "She seduced them, gained their trust, and then—" His voice was interrupted by the arrival of an urgent fax from Chicago. It was the forensic report on Ryan and Eliza's car. In Joyce's office, the social worker organized a thick folder with all of Olivia's drawings and session records. Each page told a part of the story, forming a terrifying mosaic of manipulation and threats. One drawing in particular stood out. It showed a female figure in black throwing papers into a river, while 2 smaller people watched from a distance, hidden behind a tree. "You weren't the only one there that night, were you, Olivia?" Joyce asked softly. The girl, who was playing with her modeling clay, looked up with tearful eyes. "Daddy and Mommy saw too. They were looking for me because I had sneaked out. That's why the bad lady found out they knew." At the Hayes mansion, the maid who found the camera and documents worked nervously, trying to act naturally while Magnolia moved around the house. In her pocket, the small filming device felt heavy. While cleaning the office, she overheard a phone conversation that made her blood run cold. "I don't care how you fix this, Lance," Magnolia hissed into the phone. "That little brat and the cleaning lady know too much, and now the old man is getting better at the hospital. We need to act before the charity gala tomorrow night." In Arizona, at a small motel in Phoenix, Eliza and Ryan Constant were preparing to return to Harmony Springs. On the bed, a folder full of original documents proved Magnolia and Lance's scheme. Beside it, an old photograph showed Regina Meadows smiling, unaware it would be her last photo. "She's going to pay for everything," Ryan said, hugging his wife. "For Regina, for us, and especially for making our daughter suffer." Back at the hospital, Eleanor finally finished her notes. Pages and pages detailed years of observations, suspicious conversations, secretly photographed documents. But the most important thing was in a separate envelope, photos of Magnolia altering Theodore's medication and a recording of her conversation with Lance about their plans to take over the company. Dr. Clara White, after examining Theodore and confirming that he was recovering quickly now that he was receiving the correct medication, met with Bernice in the hospital cafe. The cleaner trembled as she recounted the call she had received from Arizona. "They're coming back, Clara. Eliza and Ryan are alive and they have proof. But Magnolia already knows," Clara finished, running a hand through her hair in a nervous gesture. Somehow, she found out. At the law office, Lance received an unexpected visit. The elderly woman who had sought him out before was not alone this time. Beside her, a young woman held a professional camera. "My granddaughter didn't just film that night by the river, Doctor," the woman said with a sad smile. "She recorded many other interesting things over the years. You know, she always liked to photograph the night landscape. That night, as the town prepared for the big charity gala that Theodore hosted annually, different groups of people moved silently, each with their own revelations and evidence. In the center of it all, a 6-year-old girl carried the weight of a secret too big for her small heart. In the mansion kitchen, as staff prepared the final details for the next day's party, Magnolia instructed the chef about a special request. "The dessert for table 5 needs to be served separately. I will supervise the preparation myself." What she didn't know was that her every move was being recorded by multiple cameras, strategically placed by Eleanor over the months. And in the housekeeper's uniform pocket, still at the hospital, a small remote control held the power to transmit all those images directly to a giant screen in the ballroom. At midnight, as the rain continued to fall on Harmony Springs, a bus left Phoenix bound for Illinois. In the front seat, a couple held a folder full of documents tightly. In the back seat, a mysterious man watched their movements intently, his phone ready to make an important call. At the boarding house, Olivia woke up startled from a nightmare. She had dreamed of her parents, of the river, of papers flying in the rain. Bernice hugged her tight, whispering words of comfort, while her own heart pounded with the weight of the decisions she would need to make in the next 24 hours. "Auntie," Olivia murmured sleepily, "tomorrow at the party, can we wear pretty dresses?" Bernice swallowed the lump in her throat, thinking of the new dress Theodore had sent over earlier. "Yes, my love, tomorrow will be a very special day." What no one could have predicted was that special would only be the beginning to describe the events that were about to unfold at the Hayes Charity Gala. The ballroom at the Hayes mansion sparkled under the crystal chandeliers on that special. And night, Harmony Springs high society and beyond, circulated among elegantly decorated tables, while waiters served canapes and champagne on silver trays. In the center of the ballroom, Magnolia reigned supreme in her designer red dress, greeting guests with her studied smile. Theodore, recently discharged from the hospital and visibly stronger now that he was taking the correct medication, watched. His wife with a different look. Her every gesture, every laugh, every graceful movement now carried a different weight in his heart. At table 5, near one of the windows overlooking the garden, Bernice adjusted the bow on Olivia's new dress. The girl looked stunning in her first party dress, light blue like the spring sky, a special gift from Theodore. Her large eyes scanned the ballroom, a mixture of admiration and apprehension. "Are you okay, my love?" Bernice whispered, adjusting a lock of her niece's hair. Olivia nodded silently, but her small fingers squeezed the linen napkin with unnecessary force. She had recognized Lance Vance entering discreetly through a side door, carrying a black leather briefcase. At the hospital, Eleanor finished dressing, with the help of her granddaughter. Against all medical recommendations, she had insisted on attending the party. In her purse, in addition to her medication, she carried a small remote control and a flash drive that could change everything. "Grandma, are you sure?" her granddaughter asked for the 10th time, helping her with her shoes. "My dear," Eleanor replied with a serene smile, "there are moments in life when we need to be present, no matter the cost." In the mansion kitchen, the chef supervised the final dinner preparations. Magnolia had insisted on a special dessert for table 5, a milk pudding made with an exclusive recipe that she herself had provided. The chef, however, had noticed something strange about the sauce container and discreetly made a last-minute substitution. Outside the mansion, a discreet car parked a few blocks away. From it emerged Eliza and Ryan Constant after a tense journey from Arizona. In their hands, they carried a folder with documents that could unmask years of scams and manipulations. "Are you sure she doesn't know we're here?" Eliza asked, her heart pounding at the thought of seeing her daughter after so long. "Clara guaranteed it," Ryan replied, squeezing his wife's hand, "and Detective Miller has men at all the exits." Back in the ballroom, Theodore prepared to give his annual speech. His voice, once weak and hesitant, now sounded clear and strong. Through the microphone, "Dear friends, this year our charity gala has a special meaning." He was interrupted by a commotion at the ballroom entrance. Eleanor had arrived, leaning on her cane, causing a stir among the guests. For a moment, Magnolia lost her composure, her face visibly paling. The housekeeper walked slowly to the center of the ballroom, stopping near the makeshift stage. With a discreet movement, she handed a small object to one of the sound technicians, who immediately understood what he needed to do. At that moment, Olivia let out a scream that cut through the air in the ballroom. "Mommy! Daddy!" All heads turned to the entrance where Eliza and Ryan Constant emerged, elegant in their simple but dignified clothes. Magnolia dropped her champagne glass, the crystal shattering on the marble floor. "This is impossible," she murmured, stepping back. "You couldn't be alive?" Ryan finished, his voice carrying a chilling calm. "Or be here to tell the truth about Regina Meadows?" The name caused a sudden, stunned silence in the ballroom. Regina Meadows, Theodore's former business partner, whose disappearance had never been solved. Olivia ran into her parents' arms, sobbing with happiness, while Bernice covered her face with her hands, crying silently. Theodore watched the scene, with a mixture of emotions on his face. That's when the ballroom lights flickered and a giant screen descended behind the stage. Eleanor, with a serene smile, pressed the button on the remote control in her purse. The images began to play, Magnolia switching Theodore's medication, secret conversations with Lance, documents being forged, a private meeting where she laughed, while planning the demolition of poor families' homes. "Turn that off!" Magnolia shouted, rushing towards the equipment, but she was restrained by two security guards who, discreetly positioned by Gerald Miller, were waiting for this moment. Lance tried to escape through the side door, but found his path blocked by the elderly woman and her granddaughter with the camera, accompanied by police officers. "The recordings from the river are particularly interesting, Doctor," the woman said with a calm smile. The ensuing confusion was interrupted by Olivia's clear, strong voice, who broke free from her parents' arms and walked to the center of the ballroom. "I saw everything," she said, her small voice echoing in the silence that had fallen. "I saw when she threw the papers in the river. I saw when she threatened my parents. I saw when she hurt Uncle Theodore with the wrong medicine." Theodore descended from the stage, walking slowly towards Magnolia, who now seemed to shrink in her extravagant red dress. "Why?" he asked simply. "Because she's always done this," Eliza replied, approaching with a folder of documents. "Regina Meadows discovered the scheme 20 years ago. Other businessmen before you, Theodore. Always the same plan. Seduction, marriage, mysterious illness, total control of assets. The next few hours were a whirlwind of revelations. Police escorted Magnolia and Lance out of the ballroom, while Detective Miller explained the evidence found to those present. The documents Eliza and Ryan brought proved a decades-long scheme, involving not only land manipulation, but a network of scams that extended through several cities. Months later, Harmony Springs had changed. Hayes Dairy, under new management, implemented fairer and more humane policies. Ryan took on the role of chief engineer, leading projects that benefited the community. Bernice was invited by Theodore to manage a new social project for the company, using her life experience to help vulnerable families. Eleanor, recovered and stronger than ever, remained at the mansion, now not just as a housekeeper, but as a respected advisor and friend. Her granddaughter was hired as the company's official photographer, her talent for capturing important moments finally recognized. On a sunny afternoon, Olivia played in the mansion garden where Theodore had built a special playground. Her parents watched her with smiles on their faces as she ran and laughed, finally free to just be a child. "You know," Theodore said, approaching Eliza and Ryan, "your daughter taught me more about courage and integrity than all my years in business." "She taught us all," Eliza replied, watching her daughter, who was now proudly showing her flowers, to Eleanor. In court, during the trial that followed, Judge Peterson was particularly touched by Olivia's testimony. Her childish voice, carrying a wisdom beyond her years, narrated with impressive clarity the events she had witnessed. "The truth," he said in his sentence, "sometimes comes from the most unexpected places. And in this case, it came from the pure heart of a child who, even in the face of fear and adversity, never lost her ability to distinguish right from wrong." Theodore, free from the false medications and manipulations, fully recovered his health. His heart, previously supposedly weak, proved strong enough to embrace a new phase of life, dedicated to transforming his company into an example of social responsibility and business ethics. And Olivia? Well, she continued selling flowers at the traffic light in front of Theodore's office, no longer out of necessity, but because, according to her, flowers make people smile. Now, however, she had her own little stand, decorated with colorful drawings, where needy children from the area learned to make arrangements, and more importantly, learned that the truth, however difficult, always finds its way to the light. The small town of Harmony Springs was never the same after that charity gala. People learned that sometimes heroes come in small sizes, and that a child's courage can be stronger than all the conspiracies of adults.